The rain in Oregon didn't wash sins away, it just watered them until they bloomed into something darker. Elias Thorne gripped the steering wheel of his rusted 1990 Ford pickup. His knuckles were white, matching the faded scars that mapped the back of his hands, a road map of violence he had spent 3 years trying to erase. The windshield wipers slapped a rhythmic, hypnotic beat against the glass. Thwack hiss, thwack hiss. It was 11:45 p.m. The Blackwood Forest Road was a throat swallowing him whole. The towering pines bent under the gale, their branches scraping the roof of the truck like skeletal fingers. He just wanted to get home. Home to the silence, home to Maya. He took the hairpin curve at 40, the old truck groaning in protest. The headlights cut through the deluge, illuminating nothing but falling water and asphalt. Then the darkness broke. Down in the ravine 50 feet below the rusted guardrail, a red light pulsed weakly. It wasn't a headlight. It was the distinct rhythmic flash of a police light bar dying in the mud. Instinct, the old dangerous instinct, screamed at him. Drive, Elias. Don't stop. You put the ghosts away. You promised her. But Elias didn't drive. He slammed the brakes. The truck skidded on wet leaves, fishtailing violently before coming to a halt on the muddy shoulder. He looked at the dashboard hula girl, a gift from his daughter. She bobbed silently, judging him. Damn it, he whispered. The voice sounded foreign, unused. He grabbed his heavy canvas medical kit from behind the seat, a kit no simple carpenter should own, and stepped into the storm. The cold was instant, a physical blow that stole the breath from his lungs. He clicked on his tactical flashlight and slid down the embankment. The ravine was a grave. The smell of gasoline and wet earth was overpowering. The patrol car was a mangled mess of steel and steam, wrapped around an ancient oak tree. It wasn't an accident. Even in the rain, Elias could see the bullet holes clustered on the driver's door. Professional, tight grouping, and execution. Elias reached the wreck. He shone his light inside. She was young, too young to be dying in a ditch. Her uniform was soaked black with blood. Shattered glass glittered in her dark hair like diamonds. Her head was slumped against the steering wheel, but at the beam of light she stirred. Help! The word was a bubble of blood popping on her lips. Elias ripped the door open. Metal screeched against metal. He cut her seatbelt with a knife that appeared in his hand with practiced speed. He pulled her out, dragging her onto the only dry patch of ground beneath the chassis overhang. He scanned her. The medic eye took over. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Shoulder dislocated. Concussion. But the killer was the neck. A jagged piece of shrapnel from the doorframe had torn through the muscle. It had missed the carotid artery by millimeters, but severed the external jugular vein. She was bleeding out. Fast. Name! Elias barked, pressing his palm hard against the wound. The warmth of her blood was shocking against the freezing rain. Elena! Her eyes rolled back. Hazel, terrified, dilated. Elena, listen to me. You're not dying tonight. Pressure wasn't enough. The blood was dark and steady. He needed to close it now, or she would air embolize and die before the sirens wailing in the distance got anywhere near. Elias opened the hidden compartment in his canvas bag. He didn't have a trauma surgeon's kit. He had a field kit. He pulled out a spool of high-tensile fishing line and a curved upholstery needle. He flicked his lighter, heating the needle until it glowed angry red in the dark sizzling as raindrops hit it. He looked at her pale face. This is going to hurt. Stay with me. He began to stitch. 1 stitch, 2 stitches. His hands, usually rough from sanding wood, moved with the impossible grace of a concert pianist. He tied the knots one-handed, a friction knot technique known only to combat medics who had worked in places that didn't exist on official maps. Elena gasped, her body arching in agony. Her hand flew up, grabbing his collar, her fingers tangling in the chain around his neck. She was drowning in pain, anchoring herself to him. Lightning flashed, turning the forest bone white for a split second, and Elias froze. Illuminated by the strobe of the storm, he saw it. Around Elena's bloodied neck, revealed where her uniform collar was torn, was a silver necklace, a delicate chain holding a small silver swallow in mid-flight. The world stopped. The rain stopped. The thunder silenced. He knew that necklace. He knew every curve of that silver bird. He had bought it in a small antique shop in Seattle 10 years ago. He had clasped it around the neck of his wife, Sarah, on their 5th anniversary. He had buried her with it. He had seen the casket close. Why is it around this stranger's neck? The shock was a physical blow. His hand trembled. Did she steal it? Is she a grave robber? Is this a sick game? But the soldier in him roared, "Save the life first. Interrogate later." He forced his hand to steady. He finished the knot. The bleeding stopped. Elias sat back on his heels, panting, the adrenaline crashing through his system. He looked at the silver swallow one last time. He wanted to rip it off her. He wanted to shake her until she gave him answers. But the sirens were close now. Blue lights flashed through the trees above. If the police found him, they would run his prints. They would find the ghost. They would realize Elias Thorne was actually Sergeant Elias Vance, the man who vanished. They would take Maya away. He couldn't stay. He lifted Elena. She felt impossibly light, like a bird with hollow bones, and carried her up the muddy embankment. He laid her on the asphalt, right where the headlights of the approaching ambulance would catch her. He leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "Who are you?" he whispered, a desperate plea to the unconscious woman. Then Elias Thorne vanished into the trees, leaving only muddy boot prints and a woman stitched together with fishing line. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and old secrets. It was 6:30 a.m. The storm had passed, leaving the Oregon sky a bruised purple. Elias stood by the stove flipping pancakes, but his mind was back in the ravine. He had scrubbed his hands with bleach for 10 minutes, but he could still feel the phantom warmth of Elena's blood. "Eat up, ladybug." Maya sat at the small wooden table, 8 years old. She was the spitting image of her mother, with the same unruly curls and the same constellation of freckles across her nose. But where Sarah had been music and laughter, Maya was absolute silence. She hadn't spoken a word in 3 years. Not since the day the police came to their door to say Sarah was gone. Selective mutism, the doctors called it. A trauma response. Elias called it a broken heart that never healed. Maya picked up her charcoal pencil. She didn't eat. She drew. She pushed the sketchbook toward Elias. On the paper, in heavy dark strokes, she had drawn a bird. A bird with a broken wing lying in the mud, surrounded by jagged lines of rain. Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. Maya had always been sensitive. She felt shifts in the barometric pressure of his soul. "Is that a swallow, Maya?" he asked, his voice tight. Maya looked up. Her eyes were old souls trapped in a child's face. She reached out and touched his hand, the hand that had saved a life 6 hours ago. She traced the scars on his knuckles. She didn't smile. She just held him. She knew. She knew the darkness was back. Elias pulled his hand away gently, forcing a smile. "Mrs. Higgins will be here soon for your homeschooling. I have to go to the workshop." He walked to the window. Outside, the world looked peaceful. Wet leaves glistened. But then a black SUV rolled slowly past their isolated driveway. It didn't stop. The windows were tinted, too dark to be legal. It moved with the predatory slowness of a shark. Elias didn't reach for a weapon, but his body tensed, coiled like a spring. He memorized the tire treads in the mud. Aggressive pattern. City tires, not locals. The fortress was compromised. Pain was a color. It was blinding white. Elena Vance opened her eyes. The sterile smell of the hospital assaulted her. The rhythmic beeping of the monitor was a hammer inside her skull. "Easy, Sergeant." Captain Marcus Sterling stood over her. 55 years old, silver hair, perfectly coiffed, uniform impeccable. He was her godfather, her mentor, the man who had pinned the badge on her chest. "You're lucky," Sterling said, his voice dripping with fatherly concern. He touched the bed rail. "The doctors are baffled. Who stitched you up, Elena? I don't know, Elena rasped. Her throat felt like it was filled with glass. It was dark. I passed out. Well, whoever he was, he used a combat suture knot, the kind they teach in special forces, or in prison. Sterling's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He saved you, or maybe he wanted to keep you alive for questions. The cartel doesn't like it when officers poke around their shipping containers, Elena. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't told Sterling about the shipping containers. She hadn't told anyone. That was her private investigation. I didn't see him, she lied. Instinct kicked in. Something was wrong. Sterling stared at her a second too long. Rest. We'll handle the investigation. Leave it alone, Elena. You've done enough. He patted her hand, a gesture that felt more like a warning than comfort, and left the room. Elena waited 60 seconds. Then she sat up. The room spun violently. She ignored it. She grabbed the plastic bag containing her personal effects from the bedside table. Her uniform was cut to ribbons. Her gun was there. Sterling must have pulled strings to keep it with her, but her necklace was gone. The silver swallow, the only clue to her birth family. She had found it in a pawn shop in Seattle 5 years ago, matching the description in her adoption file. It was her only link to a sister she never knew. He took it. The man in the rain. Fury replaced the pain. She grabbed her laptop from the side table. She didn't trust the official investigation anymore. Why did Sterling know about the shipping containers? She logged into the county's traffic grid. Route 9 had no cameras. It was a dead zone. But Elena was a good cop because she knew how to break the rules. There was an old decommissioned speed trap camera 2 miles up from the crash site. The state stopped using it years ago, but the feed still archived to a backup server she had access to. She hacked in. Timestamp 11:50 p.m. Rain obscured almost everything, but as a truck passed the camera, a bolt of lightning flashed. The license plate was covered in mud, but the lightning reflected off the wet windshield. She zoomed in, enhancing the reflection. It wasn't a face. It was a hanging tag on the rearview mirror. Not a parking pass, but a unique hand-carved wooden ornament. A tiny wolf. Elena recognized the craftsmanship. She had seen similar carvings at the local farmer's market weeks ago, sold by a quiet man who never made eye contact. She pulled up the vendor list for the Blackwood Market. Elias Thorne, carpenter, address 442 Pine Ridge Road. Elena closed the laptop. She pulled the IV from her arm. Blood dripped on the floor, but she didn't care. She was going to get her necklace back, and she was going to find out why her captain knew things he shouldn't. Elias was sanding a custom oak table when the wind chimes didn't ring. He knew someone was there because the birds had stopped singing. The forest had gone quiet. He put down the sandpaper. He wiped his hands on a rag. He walked to the porch, moving silently across the creaky floorboards. Maya, he whispered into the living room. Safe room. Now. Maya didn't argue. She saw the look in his eyes, the look that meant danger. She vanished into the hallway, clutching her sketchbook. Elias stepped out onto the porch. The sun was setting bleeding red across the yard. Elena Vance stood by the cedar tree. She looked like a ghost herself, pale, sweating the bandage on her neck, seeping fresh blood. She held her service weapon, but her grip was shaky. She was operating on sheer will. You're hard to find, Elias, she said. You shouldn't be walking, Elias said calmly. He leaned against the railing, arms crossed, looking casual, but every muscle was ready to snap. You'll tear the stitches, and I don't have any more fishing line. You stole from me, she accused, stepping closer. The gun wavered. I saved your life, Elias replied, his voice low and gravelly. Most people send a card. The necklace, she gritted out. Give it back. Elias's face hardened. The mask of the simple carpenter slipped. The soldier emerged. He walked down the steps straight toward the gun. Where did you get it? He asked. Stop walking. Did you dig her up? Elias stopped 3 feet from the barrel. His eyes were terrifying voids. Did you rob my wife's grave? Elena blinked confusion, breaking her anger. What? No. I bought it. A pawn shop in Seattle. It matches the one my birth sister had. I was adopted. I've been looking for my family. Elias stopped. The anger drained, replaced by a profound shock that rocked him to his core. Adopted? Sarah was adopted. She had always said she felt like she had a twin somewhere. He reached into his pocket. The silver swallow dangled from his fingers, catching the dying light of the sun. Sarah, he whispered. Elna lowered the gun, her hand reaching out, trembling. Who is Sarah? Crack. The sound wasn't thunder. It was the dry snap of a high-velocity rifle round. The wood of the porch railing exploded inches from Elias's hip. Elias didn't think. Instinct took over. He tackled Elena, slamming her into the dirt behind the engine block of his truck, just as a second bullet whistled through the space where her chest had been. Get down, he roared. Who are they? Elena screamed, clutching her bleeding neck. The cleanup crew, Elias snarled. He looked at the house. The front door was open. Maya. Stay here, he ordered Elena. Where are you going? My daughter is in there. Elias moved. He didn't run. He sprinted in a serpentine pattern, bullets kicking up dirt at his heels. He dove through the front door, shoulder rolling into the hallway. Maya! He found her in the hallway. She was curled in a ball, hands over her ears, eyes wide with terror. Elias scooped her up. She was heavy, but adrenaline made her feather light. He ran to the kitchen, kicked aside the rug, and yanked open a trap door hidden in the floor. Get in, he commanded. The safe room. Lock it from the inside. Do not open it unless you hear the code. Understand? Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. But then she stopped. She grabbed his shirt. She looked past him through the window. She saw Elena pinned down behind the truck, the dirt exploding around her as bullets rained down. Maya looked at her father, and then the miracle happened. The wall of silence crumbled. Daddy? Her voice was rusty, small but clear. Daddy, she's hurting. Elias felt his heart break and rebuild itself in a single beat. His daughter spoke, and she spoke to save a stranger. He kissed her forehead. I know, baby, I'm going to get her. Lock the door. He pushed Maya down into the dark and slammed the heavy oak trapdoor shut. He heard the deadbolt click. Elias stood up. He walked to the loose floorboard under the sink. He pulled out the Glock 19 and a spare magazine. He racked the slide. The simple carpenter was gone. The ghost was gone. Elias walked out into the line of fire. The Reaper was back. The air smelled of cordite and wet pine. Elias moved through his own house like a shadow, the Glock becoming an extension of his hand. He counted 4 shooters. They were suppressing Elena, keeping her pinned behind the truck. He slid to the side window. He saw a muzzle flash in the azalea bushes. Pop. Elias fired once through the glass. The muzzle flash stopped. 1 down. He moved immediately. Shoot and move, never stay static. He ran to the back door, kicked it open, and fired 2 suppressive shots toward the second position near the woodshed. Elena, he shouted over the gunfire. Move to the house now. Elena didn't hesitate. She scrambled through the mud, clutching her bleeding neck. Bullets chewed up the ground inches behind her boots. She dove onto the porch and crawled inside. Elias grabbed her vest and dragged her into the hallway away from the windows. Are you hit? He asked, his eyes scanning the perimeter. I'm fine. She panted, blood seeping through her fingers. Just the stitches. Who the hell are these guys? Professionals, Elias said, checking his mag. Same ones who ran you off the road. They're here to finish the job. The shooting stopped. Silence returned. That was worse. It meant they were repositioning, flanking. We can't stay here, Elias said. They'll burn the house down to flush us out. My phone, Elena said, reaching for her pocket. I can call backup. Elias grabbed her wrist, his grip iron hard. Who are you going to call Sterling? Elena froze. Yes, he's the captain. Think Elena. Elias whispered, his eyes intense. How did they find us so fast I live off the grid? You found me an hour ago via a secure server. Who knew you were looking? Elena's face went pale. I, I accessed the Speed Trap archives. Sterling has admin rights. He gets alerts on unusual activity. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Sterling, the man who taught her how to shoot, the man who sat at her table for Thanksgiving. He knew about the shipping containers. Elena whispered, horror dawning. He mentioned them at the hospital. I never told him. He's cleaning up loose ends, Elias said. And right now, we are the loose ends. They retreated to the basement. It wasn't just a basement. It was a reinforced bunker Elias had built for this exact nightmare. Maya was there huddled in the corner with her sketchbook. When she saw Elena bloody, dirty, terrified, she didn't hide. She stood up. She walked over and offered Elena a clean towel. Thank you, Elena whispered, pressing the towel to her neck. Elias locked the heavy steel door. He turned on the emergency lights. The room was bathed in a soft amber glow. Let me look at that neck, Elias said. He sat Elena down. He cleaned the wound again. His hands were gentle now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a strange intimacy in the small room. You said, Elena started wincing as he applied antiseptic. You said you buried your wife with the necklace. Elias paused. He pulled the silver swallow from his pocket. He held it out to her. Sarah, he said softly. My wife. She died 3 years ago. A car accident, they said. But it wasn't. She saw something she shouldn't have. Someone ran her off the road. Just like you. Elena took the necklace. Her hands were shaking. I found this in a pawn shop. The date on the ticket was 2 days after she died. They looked at each other. The pieces fell into place. The thief who robbed Sarah's grave pawned the necklace. Elena bought it guided by fate or luck looking for her sister. She was adopted, Elias said. She was born in Seattle General 1992. I was born in Seattle General, Elena whispered, tears spilling over. 1995. Same birth mother, Jane Doe. Elias looked at Elena. He saw Sarah in her eyes, the shape of the nose, the stubborn set of the jaw. You're her sister, Elias said. The realization was heavy, profound. Your family. Maya stepped forward. She touched Elena's arm. Sister, she whispered. Elena looked down at the child. She dropped to her knees, ignoring the pain. She hugged Maya. For the first time in her life, the loneliness that had dogged Elena Vance vanished. She wasn't an orphan anymore. She had a niece. I'm sorry I didn't find her in time, Elena sobbed. You're here now, Elias said. He put a hand on Elena's shoulder. And I'm not letting you die. Not again. A heavy thud against the steel door shook the room. Open up, Elias! It was a voice amplified by a megaphone. Sterling. I know you're in there. I know you have the girl. Elias moved Maya behind him. You have two choices, Sterling's voice oozed through the vents. Come out and die like a man, or stay in there and burn. Smoke began to curl under the door. They were pouring gasoline into the house. The ventilation, Elias cursed. He's going to suffocate us. We don't have a choice, Elena said, coughing. Elias looked at the wall behind the shelves of canned food. There's an escape tunnel, leads to the creek, but it's narrow, and it collapses easily. We don't have a choice, Elena said. Elias pushed the heavy shelf aside. Behind it was a small, dark hole dug into the earth. Maya first, Elias said. Maya crawled in. Elena followed. Elias took one last look at the bunker, his sanctuary. He grabbed a satchel of C4 explosives he had kept from his service days. Never leave home without it. He set the timer on the door. 30 seconds. He crawled into the tunnel. They scrambled through the dirt, the air growing hot and thick. Above them, they could hear the roar of the fire consuming the house. The fortress was burning. They burst out of the tunnel exit, tumbling into the freezing water of the creek, 50 yards from the house. Boom! The C4 detonated. The house collapsed in on itself, sending a plume of fire into the night sky. From the tree line, Sterling watched the inferno. He smiled. Problem solved. But down in the creek, hidden by the embankment, in the darkness, three heads bobbed above the water. Elias held Maya close, shielding her from the falling debris. They were alive, but they were wet, freezing, and homeless. They moved through the forest in silence. Elias led them to an old hunting cabin 3 miles deep in the timberlands. It was abandoned, a relic of the 1950s, but it had 4 walls and a roof. The cold was the new enemy. Hypothermia could kill them faster than a bullet. Elias kicked the door open. He didn't waste time. Strip, he ordered Elena and Maya. Wet clothes off, now. It wasn't sexual, it was survival. He found old blankets in a cedar chest, moth-eaten but dry. He wrapped Maya in 2 of them, rubbing her arms vigorously to generate heat. I'm cold, Daddy. Maya chattered, her lips blue. I know, baby. Think of the sun. Think of the beach. Elias whispered, pulling Elena close so they could share body heat. The 3 of them huddled together on the dusty floorboards, a tangle of limbs and shivering bodies. Elias managed to start a small fire in the potbelly stove, using dry moss and broken furniture. As the warmth slowly filled the room, the danger receded, replaced by the crushing weight of reality. Sterling. Elena said, her voice shaking as she stared at the fire. He's running for police commissioner next month. The gala is tomorrow night. He thinks we're dead, Elias said, checking his weapon. He had 1 magazine left, 7 rounds. He's going to get away with it, Elena said bitterly. He killed Sarah. He tried to kill me, and he's going to be commissioner. No, Maya said. They turned to look at her. Maya was holding her teddy bear. It was Mr. Bear, the one thing Elias had grabbed before the tunnel. Mommy gave me Mr. Bear, Maya whispered. She said he keeps secrets. Maya turned the bear over. On the back there was a small hidden zipper. She opened it. Inside was a small digital voice recorder. Elias stared. He remembered that recorder. Sarah used it for grocery lists. Mommy pressed the button, Maya said. Before the car crashed, she threw Mr. Bear to me in the back seat. Elias's hands shook as he took the recorder. He pressed play. Static. Then the sound of an engine and voices. You're a smart girl, Sarah. Too smart. You shouldn't have looked in the warehouse. It was Sterling's voice. Clear as day, arrogant, cold. Please, Sarah's voice, terrified. I won't tell anyone. I have a daughter. Please. I know. That's why you have to die. Can't have you worrying about her. Then the sound of a collision, screeching metal, silence. Elias fell to his knees. The grief he had buried for 3 years exploded in his chest. He roared a sound of pure, unadulterated pain that shook the dust from the rafters. Elena wrapped her arms around him. Maya hugged his leg. They held him while he broke. He killed her, Elias wept. He looked me in the eye at the funeral and shook my hand. We have him, Elena said, her voice hard as steel. We have the evidence. We can go to the FBI. No, Elias wiped his eyes. The grief hardened into cold, razor-sharp rage. The FBI takes too long. Sterling has judges in his pocket. He'll bury this. So what do we do? Elias looked at the recorder. Then he looked at Elena. Tomorrow night is the gala. All the cameras will be there. The mayor, the news. You want to crash the party? Elena asked. I don't want to crash it, Elias said, standing up. The firelight danced in his eyes, reflecting a dangerous promise. I want to burn it down. Maya looked at the broken pieces of their lives. Like the bowl, she whispered. What? Elias asked. Kintsugi, Maya said a word Sarah had taught her. When you fix a broken bowl with gold, it makes it stronger. Elias looked at his daughter. He looked at his wife's sister. He looked at the scars on his hands. Yes, Elias said, we're going to fix it with fire. The grand ballroom of the Seattle Plaza Hotel was a sea of tuxedos and diamond gowns. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played soft Mozart. At the podium, Captain Marcus Sterling stood tall, a glass raised. To safety, to community, to a future where our children can walk the streets without fear. Applause rippled through the room. Flashes popped. It was his coronation. Outside in the loading dock, a security guard was sleeping peacefully, zip-tied to a chair. Elias Thorne stepped over him. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo. He was wearing his work boots, dark jeans, and a black tactical jacket that had seen better days. He looked like what he was, a blue-collar angel of death. Elena was beside him. She wore a stolen catering uniform, her neck bandage hidden by a high collar. Maya was between them, holding Mr. Bear like a weapon. "Ready?" Elias asked. "For Sarah," Elena said. "For Mom," Maya whispered. They moved. Sterling was wrapping up his speech. "And though we lost a fine officer, Sergeant Vance, in a tragic accident yesterday," he paused for dramatic effect, wiping a fake tear, "we carry her memory." The doors to the ballroom slammed open. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The music stopped. Hundreds of heads turned. Elias walked down the center aisle. He didn't rush. He walked with the terrifying inevitability of a landslide. Elena walked beside him. Sterling froze at the podium. His face went white. He looked like he was seeing ghosts. "Security!" Sterling shouted, his voice cracking. "Remove these people!" Two guards stepped forward. Elias didn't even slow down. He moved a blur of motion, and the first guard was on the floor with a dislocated knee. The second guard hesitated, seeing the look in Elias's eyes. "Don't," Elias warned. The guard backed off. Elias stopped 10 feet from the stage. The room was deathly silent. "You said she died in an accident," Elias said, his voice projecting to the back of the room without a microphone. "Elias," Sterling stammered, trying to regain control. "You're grieving. You're not well. Someone get him help." "And you said I was dead." Elena stepped forward, pulling off her catering jacket to reveal her torn, bloodied police uniform underneath. The crowd gasped. "Elena," Sterling whispered. "You missed," Elena said. She pointed to her neck. "But he didn't." She pointed to Elias. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elias said, turning to the cameras, "Captain Sterling likes speeches, but my daughter, she likes the truth." Elias lifted Maya onto the edge of the stage. Maya stood there, small, fragile, holding a teddy bear. She walked up to the microphone stand. It was too high. She pulled the mic down. Sterling realized what was happening. "Cut the mic! Cut the sound!" he screamed, lunging for her. Elias vaulted onto the stage. He intercepted Sterling, slamming a forearm into the captain's chest, knocking him backward. "Let her speak," Elias growled. Maya held the recorder up to the microphone. She pressed play. The ballroom filled with the sound of static, and then the voice, Sterling's voice. "That's why you have to die. Can't have you worrying about her." The sound of the crash echoed through the speakers. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Every eye in the room was on Sterling. The mayor looked sick. The press were frantically typing. Sterling scrambled up, his face purple. "It's fake, it's AI, they doctored it." "It's dated 3 years ago," Elena said, holding up the device. "And it mentions the warehouse, the one you used to traffic drugs for the cartel." Sirens wailed outside. Real police? FBI? Elena had made the call this time. Sterling looked around. He saw his career, his life, turning to ash. He pulled a concealed pistol from his tuxedo jacket. "I won't go to prison," he screamed. He aimed at Maya. Elias didn't hesitate. He didn't reach for a gun. He threw himself in front of his daughter. Bang! The shot rang out. Elias jerked back, grunting. But Sterling didn't get a second shot. Elena fired, once. Clean. Sterling dropped the gun, clutching his shoulder, screaming. Elias fell to his knees. Maya screamed. "Daddy!" Elena rushed to him. "Elias!" Elias looked down at his chest. The bullet had hit his tactical vest, the old ceramic plate he had slipped in before they left. It hurt like hell, a broken rib maybe, but he was alive. He looked up at Elena. He smiled. I'm okay, I'm okay. FBI agents swarmed the stage. Sterling was cuffed, dragging him away past the cameras, screaming obscenities. The paramedics arrived. They tried to check Elias, but Elias pushed them away. He pulled Elena and Maya into a hug. The three of them, dirty, bloody, exhausted, huddled together on the stage of the Plaza Hotel, while the world flashed and buzzed around them. We did it, Maya whispered. Yeah, Elias kissed the top of her head. We did it. Later that night outside the precinct, the rain had started again, but it was a soft rain, a cleansing rain. Elias sat on the back of an ambulance, a blanket around his shoulders. Elena sat next to him. Maya was asleep on his lap. FBI says they found the warehouse, Elena said quietly. Sterling kept detailed ledgers. He's going away for life. The whole network is compromised. Good, Elias said. He felt light. For the first time in 3 years, the weight was gone. What now? Elena asked. She touched the silver swallow at her throat. Do you go back to being a ghost? Elias looked at her. He took her hand, his rough, scarred fingers interlaced with hers. No, he said. Ghosts are lonely. I think I'm done with lonely. Elena smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen on her face. It was beautiful. Me too, she said. Elias leaned in. He kissed her. It wasn't a movie kiss. It tasted of rain, exhaust smoke, and survival. It was the best kiss of his life. Epilogue. 1 year later. The sun was shining in Blackwood. The house was rebuilt. It was bigger now with a wraparound porch and a large garden. Smoke drifted from the barbecue grill. Elias flipped burgers, humming a tune. He wasn't wearing long sleeves. His scars were visible, exposed to the sun. He didn't hide them anymore. Daddy, you're burning them. Maya ran across the lawn. She was laughing, loud, bright laughter that filled the air. I am not, Elias laughed back. You are too, Elena said, walking out of the house carrying a bowl of salad. She wore a badge on her belt, chief of police, but right now she was just Elena. She walked up to Elias and kissed his cheek. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary, Elias said. 1 year since the rain. 1 year since the stitch. Maya ran up to them. Look what I found. She held up a feather, a blue jay feather. It's beautiful, Elena said. Elias looked at his family. The broken pieces had been put back together with gold. They were stronger now. He looked at his wrist. The black rubber bracelet was gone. In its place was a woven friendship bracelet Maya had made him. Never leave a fallen. He hadn't, and he never would. Elias Thorne turned off the grill, put his arm around his wife and daughter, and walked into the sunlight.